butter, flour, milk or cream, and a little bit of salt. Now, what can you make from those 4 very available ingredients? I'm going to show you how to make pâte feuilletée or puff pastry and how to create these extraordinary baked goods. I just love cheese straws. They're one of my favorite hors d'oeuvres. Light as air, subtly flavored, they're extraordinary. Elephant ears or palmiers, glistening and caramely. You can make big ones or smaller ones, doesn't matter, they taste fantastic. Pithiviers, the epiphany cake. It's filled with an almond cream, flavored with rum, so delicious. And Napoleons, well, this is my version of a Napoleon. 2 layers of delicate puff pastry with a crème pâtissière lightened with whipped cream, filled with berries from the garden, a dessert you'll never forget. I'll show you on Martha Bakes. Nothing tastes as good and nothing is as light and as fluffy as homemade puff pastry. This is an extraordinary pastry. It's comprised of 729 layers of dough and butter. And now we have to weigh exactly 1 pound of flour. We're going to take a half cup of that, and we're going to incorporate that into 1 pound of butter, 4 sticks of unsalted butter, and mix until the butter is totally incorporated into the flour. So you can see that now we have a nice, creamy butter. You have to work in a cool place. Don't try to work on a very hot day unless you have air conditioning in your kitchen. And now just put your butter on a piece of plastic wrap and shape it into a 5 by 5 inch square. This way you're not going to make any mess. And let's see, we're going to make this looks almost exactly 5 inches square just by eye. That's because I've been making this for so long. Okay, now get this right into the refrigerator and proceed with mixing your dough. The dough is the remaining flour mixed with 1 1/4 to 1 1/2 cups of heavy cream and 2 1/2 teaspoons of salt. You don't want a real wet dough because you'll run into a lot of problems if you have a wet dough. Put this out on your counter and work on a nice cold surface if you can. A marble counter like this is great. There, this is ready. So now you're going to roll this out to a rectangle, 12 by 6 inches approximately. Turn it every now and then, brush off the excess flour. And the smoother this is when you start, the better. And all the same thickness. Imperative. Now wrap this up and chill it, and it will become the same temperature as the butter. And then the fun begins. You're now going to encase your butter in your dough. See how nice and smooth it is? And put it down on one end like this. And then you're going to fold your dough over the butter, sealing the edges. I just pinch around the edge. And you roll into about a 20 by 9 inch rectangle. See, it's already becoming pâte feuilletée. Make sure you don't get any butter oozing out the cracks. Okay, I think we are okay to make our first fold. Goes like this. That's number 1. This is number 2. And you have 1, 2, 3 layers. Between each turn, wrap and chill the dough to keep it firm. This is something else you do. Notice we folded this way. Now counterclockwise, 1/4 turn. And you're going to roll in the opposite direction now. and again into a 20 by 9-inch rectangle. Now you're going to fold this into thirds. By folding the first set of 3 layers into thirds again, you will create 9 layers, or 3 times the original amount of layers. Now that gets wrapped up again and back into the fridge. Now I don't think I'm going to show you every single turn, but you get the idea, I think, from these first 2 turns. Now you put a little indentation 2. This will serve as a reminder that you have rolled out the dough twice, which has created 9 layers. After chilling and rolling out the dough a 3rd time, you will have 27 layers, or 3 times the previous 9 layers. After 6 turns, you will have created a total of 729 layers of dough and butter. Your puff pastry is prepared. My favorite hors d'oeuvre of all time is a cheese straw. These cheese straws are flavored with poppy seeds, paprika, and Gruyere cheese. These are just Parmesan cheese, light as a feather. They're fantastic. So here's our package of dough after 6 turns, 729 layers of dough and butter in between each of those layers. This will be transformed into flaky cheese straws like these. I like to use a mixture of Parmesan and Gruyere. You can also do cheddar cheese. Any hard cheese works very, very nicely. And I like toasted poppy seeds, and you can just toast them in the oven or in a little frying pan. There, I've softened it up a little bit, and now I can cut it into thirds. And this can go right into your refrigerator. Keep that chilled while you get your toppings ready. Now here are the toasted poppy seeds. I toasted these in a 300-degree oven just until you can smell the poppy seed. So now sprinkle your Parmesan cheese right on your rolling surface. Then place the pastry right on top, cold. Now we want to roll this 1/3 of a batch of puff pastry, approximately 1 pound, into a rectangle 13 by 10. So there, that's perfect. So one side of the dough is encrusted with cheese, and it cuts very nicely. And this is just like a pizza cutter wheel. You can make cheese straws short and fat, long and thin, whatever you want. And you can twist them or not twist them. Work fast and put on your silpat. Chill them before you bake them. And that hot oven must be 375 or 400. Again, make it cold, bake it hot, and this goes into the fridge. Now for the second variation, a little bit of beautiful grated Gruyere cheese with a sprinkling of paprika. That looks good. We'll just lay the dough right on top and start to roll. On the other side, we're going to have poppy seeds. And again, we want it somewhere between 10 by 13, 9 by 13. And now I can put kind of a handful of poppy seeds all over this side. I love poppy seeds. Did you get a good look? Red on one side, that's the paprika, and the poppy seeds are the nice blackish gray on this side. And quickly cut. Now I'm going to use the zigzag cutter this time. Cutting a nice straight edge. Now again onto a silpat lined tray. And now you can see how colorful these are. Now these are going to go, again, into the refrigerator, get chilled for at least 15 to 20 minutes before we bake them off. Now the moment you've all been waiting for, the first batch of cheese straws, the ones just with cheese, are ready to come out of the oven. And look what they look like. Oh, they're so pretty. I love them. They are puffy. Now when you look at this closely, you can see all those layers. And you can see the cheese nicely melted and bubbled on the top. That's a puff pastry cheese straw. But now it's time to start on something sweet. very sweet Palmiers. I've been making Palmiers for a very long time. Caramelized, glistening, crunchy, probably one of the best cookies you'll ever make. On a surface like this, you'll measure 3/4 cup of granulated sugar. And as you rolled into the cheese, you're going to roll into the sugar. Now the sugar softens the dough really quickly, so you must work fast. So here we have a nice rectangle here. Now you roll from the outside in, tightly, and form 2 snakes facing each other. As a child, you're always rolling clay like this. Now you get to do it with really delicious puff pastry. Now, if you want larger palmiers, you can roll the short ends towards each other. That'll be a fatter, bigger palmier. So there, now you chill this quickly and then slice crosswise into 3/8 of an inch thick slices. And I will use my favorite knife, which is this Japanese cleaver. Try to make the slices uniform. Spray your pan with water. This holds the puff in place, but it prevents them also from sticking. And before these go into the oven, they're going to be sprinkled yet again with a little bit of sugar for added caramelization. You're going to put this back in the freezer for another hour before you bake it. Palmiers will bake at 450 degrees for 4 to 6 minutes, then flip them over for another 3 or 4 minutes. Napoleons, well, this is my version of a Napoleon. 2 layers of delicate puff pastry filled with a creme pâtissière lightened with whipped cream, berries from the garden, a little dusting of powdered sugar, and you have a dessert you'll never forget. So now I'd like to show you really quickly how to turn this 1 pound piece into a Napoleon. So delicious. Again, strew a little sugar on your counter and roll. You want to sugar coat a rectangle, leaving it a little thicker than you did before. Now we want to cut this into rectangles, and so down the middle, I think thirds. Now, when you're baking sugary puff, you want to use, if you can get one, a black steel pan like this, and you spray it with water, and you put your dough right on the water. Now that will be enough for 3 Napoleons, and then we're going to do 3 on another tray. Our Napoleon rectangles are now very cold. We just took them out of the freezer, and we have to dock them. Now, docking means making holes. I like to use the tines of a fork. This will help keep the Napoleon even, and just do all 3 of them. We have 3 in the oven already. Now let's see what the ones in the oven look like. Oh boy, look how gorgeous. And they're just starting to get that golden, sugary brown top. And you can see how much sugar is melting from around the sides. And then you're gonna split this and we're gonna fill it, and it's gonna be so good. And here's a little trick that I learned somewhere along the way. Place the baking rack right over your pastry, and it will rise only till that height, and take it off just when it touches the rack so then it can rise a little higher, and you'll have a really nice brick, but light brick, of puff pastry for your Napoleon. So this is going to go into the bottom oven. Now I want to show you one of my very, very favorite desserts. It's called the Pithiviers, a glistening cake filled with a rich almond cream. Now this is an almond frangipane filled puff pastry. And we have 1 pound of puff pastry, enough for the 9-inch Pithiviers. And we are rolling the puff Once this is 18 inches long and 9 inches wide, cut it into 2 pieces. So put your 9-inch square right on the parchment paper and cut right around a 9-inch pan. That's your template. And you can use a pastry cutter like this just to go around. And your other circle can go right on top of it. That goes right into the freezer until it's firm. Now we're going to make our Pithiviers. The frangipani has already been made. It is a mixture of delicious ground blanched almonds, dark rum, sugar, butter, a tiny bit of almond extract, and a little bit of flour. I have chilled a round that will go right in the center of our Pithiviers. So here's our bottom of the Pithiviers. We're going to put the frangipani pat right in the center of your puff. There. Tasty, tasty frangipani. Just beautiful. Now we need an egg wash to glue the top layer. I find that for puff pastry, a little bit of cream and egg works very, very well. This will also be the glaze for the top of the Pithiviers. I'm leaving space for the almond to melt a little bit. You'll need a little funnel like this. This is a pastry tip. It's going to go in the center of the Pithiviers top to let the steam out. And then we're going to do some decorative cutting on top, which is very, very pretty. Take your knife just through the top couple layers. You want to do this kind of spiral. You have an extraordinary opportunity to really be creative and hopefully succeed. It's great to be able to say that you made something like that. Okay, so now this is getting softer now. Do you see it looks like almost a work of modern art? There. Now spray your sheet pan and put the Pithiviers onto the iron. Now one last thing. The glazing and kind of frilling the edges. Clean, soft, natural bristle brush. And now you want to cut in the edge with the back of your knife. This will make a very pretty edge all the way around your Pithiviers. So now this goes back into the fridge for 1 hour. And this can sit right here and stay as our little steam vent, our little chimney. Isn't that beautiful? Be prepared to be wowed when you take the Pithiviers out of the oven. It's golden brown with this beautiful sheen on top. On the side, you can see layers and layers of this delicate, crispy pastry. And when you cut into this king cake, you release the intoxicating almond aroma from the frangipani filling. It is truly one of my favorite desserts. So here's the base for our Napoleon. It's sugary, it's very well done, and it is very tender inside. Crispy on the outside, tender on the inside. Slice it with a little serrated knife. It works very, very well. And the bottoms go on each of these pretty plates. And now I like to use a mixture of crème pâtissière, which is the typical French pastry cream, and a lot of whipped cream in the final vanilla-y crème pâtissière to make it very light and fluffy. Fold that in. So we're just going to spoon this on our Napoleon bottom. And then top this pastry cream with some of the best berries. And look what I have. These are the prizes from my garden. These are called Brandywine. And they are kind of a purple raspberry, not a black raspberry. Your guests will go crazy for this dessert. And now this one gets this topping like that. Looks good. And maybe a little bit of 10x sugar. That rack made a pretty little crisscross on the Napoleon. And then, of course, if you have some pretty berries, you can put a berry on the top like that. And that is a dessert that is so spectacular and so delicious and relatively easy to make once you make the puff pastry.